Good evening. I would like to call to order the September 12th, 2022 work session of the York County School Board. We're already in our third week of school, and I'd like to thank every staff member as well as our students and families for a wonderful start to the year. And let's keep the momentum going. This evening we have a full agenda and multiple presentations lined up, and the first one is our opening of school report. Dr. Shandor.
Thank you. Good evening, Ms. Geraltz. Good evening, board members and staff. We have 8 presentations this evening, so we have quite a packed agenda. So I have the opening of school report. As we head into our third week of school, I would like to share an update related to how we've done so far. So during the first week of school, I had the opportunity to visit all 19 of our schools, as well as our maintenance and transportation departments. Over the summer, our team's been busy doing multiple projects in order to prepare for our new year, and I'd like to share just a few. Our maintenance department was responsible for cleaning over 1.8 million square feet, which is all 19 of our schools. We currently have approximately 12 open custodial vacancies and 2 pending clearance to start. We appreciate our custodians and our maintenance crews who work long and hard to get our schools ready. As far as construction, we have a few things we accomplished this summer, and Dr. Carroll will share a lot of this later in the capital report. We've completed the paving of Seaford Elementary School's parking lot. I know that's popular in Ms. Geraltz's neck of the woods. We continued construction at Seaford Elementary School. We refurbished Bruton High School gym, including refinishing the floor, ductwork, replacing crash pads, and some limited painting. And again, you'll see a lot of pictures of this later in the presentation. We renovated Queens Lake Middle School's gym, including a new wood floor, LED lights, complete paint out, and replacing crash pads. We repaired and coated York High School roof, We repaired Tab Elementary playgrounds, which we've known those have flooded for a number of years, so we're really proud of that work. We completed Bruton High School roof repair and coating design. We also finalized HVAC replacement design for Mount Vernon Elementary School as well as Tab Middle School. Mr. Dolak's been busy this summer as well. We had several projects that he's worked on, including installing the SBO security vestibule. We put a vestibule at Queens Lake Middle School. We've laid a walking path at Dare Elementary School, as well as tried to work on the drainage at Coventry Elementary School. We're also starting soon the Bruton High School synthetic field, as well as the Bethel Manor drainage repairs. All the updates look great. I certainly appreciate all the hard work from our staff members. Also in transportation, over the summer, we had 160 buses that were inspected and underwent maintenance. The transportation department received a total of 346 phone calls on the first day of school. Now, I'll tell you that's fantastic because last year we received 1,235 phone calls. So certainly a lot of work went into planning and getting the year started in transportation. Our routing team is currently processing numerous requests for alternative pickups and drop-offs. They're also routing multiple students that have just enrolled into our routing system. We have 5 bus driver vacancies and 3 bus assistant vacancies. We're also looking to fill 1 or 2 more van driver positions. I bring that up because last year at this time, we had 25 vacancies for drivers. We experienced some transportation issues, but I will tell you what I told them last week when I visited them. I couldn't be more proud of that team. This is easily the best start. I'm finishing my 8th year, and it's the best year we've had in transportation. So I think everyone in the community, I think, can feel that as too. We didn't receive as many calls either. So just to give you some numbers as well, all of this work prepared us for welcoming 12,528 students on the first day of school. The enrollment number has grown every day. We're now at 12,789 students, and we monitor this very closely. We also welcomed members of the class of 2035. That would be this year's kindergarten class, and there's 802 students in the class of 2035. We had 165 new hires this year. As you've heard numerous reports from Dr. Vladu, this includes all licensed staff, teachers, school counselors, librarians, media specialists, and school social workers. Last year we had 127. So that's just a little bit of information. So here's a couple of fun facts about the first week. During our first 4 days, we served approximately 510 pounds of fresh blackberries, strawberries, and blueberries. That equates to 8,160 ounces and 45,390 berries. Ms. Ford, I hope your math is correct.
Holy cow.
One of the best things about berries is they're linked to brain health. They reduce inflammation, protect brain cells from free radicals, increase neuroplasticity, and much more. I will be having berries this evening. 8 strawberries will provide 140% of the recommended daily intake of vitamin C for kids. Blackberries are members of the rose family, Mr. Bowen. We worked through some of the usual challenges, but overall we had a very successful week of school. We're really proud of all the work that everyone's done in the school division. This concludes my opening report. Take any questions at this time.
You sound very proud.
I'm very proud. We have very done here later.
Any questions?
No, I think the reduction in calls to transportation on the first day being cut 66% or so is fantastic. It's a tribute to the hard work that's been going on, and then only having a few vacancies compared to 25 drivers last year. That's great.
I was at Magruder on the first day of school, and they said that they think they set a record for getting the buses in and out in the morning. It's the best year they've ever had. That's a testament to it.
It's great to hear.
Yeah, it's great to hear a laundry list of all the things that went on, so thank you very much. Next, we'll move on to our finance update. Dr. Shandor.
Thank you, Ms. Geraltz. Next, we're going to have Mr. Bill Bowen, our Chief Financial Officer, who's going to share some updates relating to the budget and the end-of-year fund balances. Mr. Bowen.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Madam Chair, members of the board, and Dr. Shandor. I have 2 presentations this evening. The first is a recap of 2022, and then I have an update on FY23 budget, specifically talking about the enrollment numbers today. So let me begin with the FY22 end-of-year balances. We have 7 funds that we manage at the school division, and with each having its own purpose. And I'll just review each one of those quickly this evening. We have the operating fund budget. We have $5.6 million as an end-of-year fund balance. This is from a $169 million budget, represents about 3.3% of our budget. This is one of the largest end-of-year fund balances that we've had. There's a couple reasons for that. First, as Dr. Shandor mentioned, we've made some improvements in our enrollment, in our employees and hiring. We had 25 bus vacancies last year. We have 5 this year. But the number of vacant positions that we had last year contributed to this number and why it's higher. We also had about $2.2 million left over in our technology account, and that happens from time to time because our refresh of technology equipment is rather irregular. Some years we'll have a much higher refresh than we do in other years, and last year was one of those examples. What we want to do, and this is common practice as we've done in the past, we will, staff will have a resolution for the board to approve requesting the Board of Supervisors reappropriate these dollars to the school division. And what we want to do with those dollars is we want to carve out about $1.6 million or a little bit more and transfer that to the CIP fund. And what that's going to do for us, it's going to keep some CIP projects on schedule, but it's also going to lessen the debt load for the county. And that's always a good thing because when we can lessen the debt load, then that frees up additional dollars for operations for both the county and for the school division. And then for the remaining $4 million, we want to move that into the Tech Reserve Fund. And as we've mentioned in the past, we have a big refresh coming up, our first refresh for the one-to-one technology initiative. And this fund, the Tech Reserve Fund, was created in FY21 to account and accumulate some dollars for these major refreshes that we go through. And so we're looking at about a $9 to $10 million refresh at the end of 2024 or sometime in 2025, depending on the supply chain at that time. But this will get us more than halfway there to meeting the financial obligation of that refresh. The Tech Reserve Fund at June 30 had $2.39 million in cash, so we've already started to set some dollars aside for that refresh. Food Service Fund, we had $5.9 million. This is, again, the largest balance we've had in food service, and this is directly related to the fact that the USDA covered all of our meals for the past 2 years, and including the community distribution events that we had for food. The Department of Education had a rule or policy in effect that school divisions could carry up to 3 months of operating expenses. This greatly exceeds that. Our normal fund balance is about $1.2 million. They haven't reenacted that rule. They waived it in 2021, so we haven't seen that come back yet. So we are working with our school admin folks to create an aggressive plan to start looking across the division for replacement of equipment. CIP, at June 30, we had a negative $2.1 million in cash. This is not really concerning because this fund is tied to the county's central pool cash. So typically what happens is that the county will go out for a bond issue in the spring. They didn't do that this year. They're actually going out in the fall, and the board just approved that resolution in August. But by November, those bonds should be issued, and that negative account should be addressed. Workers' compensation, this is our self-insurance fund for workers' comp. It's been pretty consistent at $2.8 million over the past couple of years. We work with a third party, Versa, to manage our workers' comp, and they do a fantastic job. We haven't seen great fluctuations in this. That's typically what you might see. On the flip side here with health insurance, we've had our challenges with health insurance. At one point, the balance here was close to $6 million. We were down last year to 427. We're now at $826,000. So we're making moves in the right direction. This is largely in response to raising rates for both the employer and the employee, and even raising the rates on the employee. We're still competitive, the best plan at the cheapest rate in our region. And then we also switched health insurance carriers. And we saw immediate savings from that action, where we were averaging anywhere from 120 to 140% of our budgeted cost. We're now below 100%, averaging more like 95%. So we've seen immediate returns on that action. And then the Revenue Stabilization Fund, $7.1 million. This is a fund that sits on the county side, where the school board and board of supervisors have joint oversight. Historically, we've seen about $8.6 million in that account. However, when we came off of the pandemic in 2021, we froze the CIP for that year. We used some of that cash, about $1.5 million, put that in the CIP so we could keep on schedule some of our CIP projects. And that also, again, lightened the debt load on the county side. So that was a good move for us. Any questions on those year-end balances? Okay. So let me move to enrollment. My numbers slightly differ from some of the numbers that Dr. Shandor just shared because I was preparing this early last week. But on day 3, our total enrollment for 23 was 12,753. As you can see above that, it's 12,766 is our budget, so we were 13 students short. We've exceeded that as of today, so that's good news. The thing to note here is there in 2020 where we saw 12,914, that was one of our largest enrollments for that 6-year period, and then we saw a loss of about 670 students during the pandemic. We're starting to see the return of those students, so that's a good thing. Another thing we like to look at is our kindergarten enrollment, because this is really the great unknown. We're a transitional community, so it's sometimes hard to put a number on kindergarten. We do a number of things to try and encourage early registration, but that doesn't always work. What we're seeing here in 2023, it was 806 students on day 3. Trying to look at this, one of the factors that can help you determine where kindergarten enrollment is going to be is the birth rates. And so I look back in the 5 to 6 year previous to 23, and then also compared that to the 5-6 year look back to 2020, and actually the birth rates were the exact same. So it's really hard to pinpoint what the exact issue we were having here in 2023. But again, as a transitional community, we do see some fluctuations with the military. The other thing is in 21 and 22, we saw significant changes in the real estate market that could have an effect. I'm kind of speculating here, but that certainly could have an effect on these numbers. So what we wanted to do is we wanted to look at elementary enrollment as a whole. So although we're seeing kindergarten enrollment decrease, elementary enrollment as a whole has increased. So from 2022 to 2023, we've seen an increase of 205 students. And that comes up from a high. If you look at 2020, we had 5,840 students. We lost 538 the next year. And then, but since 22, we regained 135 and then 205 for this year. Looking at the middle school enrollment, it's been rather stagnant since 2018. We've grown, or actually we're down 8 students from 2018, but we have seen a little bit of movement from the pandemic. We lost 116. We ended up losing 42 last year, but we've gained 65 for this year. And then on the high school side, since 2018, we're only up 38 students. But here, over the 6-year period, we're at the highest level in high school enrollment, so that's a good thing to see. We gained 204 students from 2022. And then the last thing I'll show you is homeschool students. We started reporting on this during the pandemic because this was part of our story. It's not to negatively reflect on homeschooling. It's just that this was a part of our story when we were discussing enrollment loss. And as you can see, we lost 248 students from 2020 to 2021. However, since then, we regained 124 last year, and we gained another 22 thus far this year. So things are moving in the right direction. Our enrollment's up, and we expect our enrollment to continue to increase throughout the fall, throughout the year. And that concludes my presentation, Lisa. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Where do we get our those homeschool numbers? Is that from parents reporting that to us, or do we go and get it from somewhere?
Let me defer to Ms. Scott.
Parents reporting to us, they submit their application and their paperwork, and we collect that and keep record of that.
And what is the date that the state takes our numbers?
March 31st.
March 31st.
So we'll continue to have changes throughout the year, but March 31st is the cutout.
Drop dead
cutoff
date.
Sorry.
Questions? Thank you, Mr. Bowen.
Thank you.
Our next agenda topic is the capital projects report. Dr. Shandor?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Graltz. Next, Dr. Carroll, our Chief Operations Officer, is going to present our capital projects report. Dr. Carroll.
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Madam Chair and members of the board, it's good to be with you again. And this is your capital plans report for September. I'm disappointed for Mr. Sherhart because he's not going to be able to share this with you. You're going to see a lot of the projects that Dr. Shandor mentioned earlier and a lot of before and after pictures that are quite impressive. So we'll go ahead and get started. First of all are the projects that are on the CIP, and you've got Seaford's renovations and additions. So this is a list of all the things that have been done this summer. Contractors have been extremely busy. We've actually finished several parts of the project that were not scheduled until year 2. And so we're ahead in a lot of areas. These include window replacements, installation of stormwater chambers under the parking lot, and most important, the paving of the parking lot. And so here you see a picture from June 13th. This is the stage edition that's in the back of the gym. And so that's where they were on June 13th. And here you are on September 8th, where they've, you can see the steel roof joists are in place and the steel roof decking is being installed. And all the pictures that you're going to see from above this building were taken by David Kilburn with a drone. And now we're in the back of the school, and you can see the layout for the classroom additions. This was from June 13th, and I think this was shared with you in that meeting. And here we are now. Concrete floor has been poured. This is as of September 8th. The floor is poured. The exterior walls are ready for the steel roof joists to be installed, and we expect that work to start in the next couple of weeks. And the part that everybody that's driven up and down Seaford Road has seen this. That's Seaford Road on the right. Those familiar trees are gone, and now you're seeing the area for the parking lot. And the puddles are reflective of a lot of weather that we had in June and continued to fight, but the company's done a great job. So that was June 13th. Here we are today. So here's the parking lot. The bus loop is on the left. That will be redone next summer. The nice thing about this design now is those two used to intersect. They're completely separated now, so vehicle traffic is separated from buses, and that's much safer. The one thing that's holding us up from full utilization right now is there's a power pole there in the bottom right corner. It's probably hard to see, but there's a guy wire that goes from that pole down into the asphalt. We asphalted around it, so as soon as they remove that wire or replace that wire to a better location, then we'll have full use of the parking lot. And so everything's been arranged with Dominion, and we're just waiting. I'm being told to try to, right there, see that pole right there? And right to the right of the dot is where we demarcated it with an orange barrel. But we can't really use it for all of the arrival and dismissal until we get that out of the way because of the island that is right near it. See that island right there? There's just not enough space to get in between those two. So we're waiting for Dominion on that. Hopefully that'll happen very soon. The next thing is York High School, the roof repair and the coating for that, and that's been a 2-year project. Despite supply chain issues and weather, again, this project is still on schedule, and in fact, it's a bit ahead of schedule. The contractor now has 2 crews working on the roof to finish it as soon as possible. And first, we'll take a look. This is a June 26 picture showing the removal of wet roof insulation and new insulation being installed there. And then July 5th, and so that white roof is what it should look like. This picture shows the media center roof that was coated last summer and surrounding roofs which were waiting for repairs and coating at that time. And so now a picture taken from the front of the school, and it shows how many sections of the roof have already been repaired and coated to date. And we still have 2 large areas that remain to be coated, the cafeteria and the second story. As I said, that is moving along nicely. So now the next slides are going to deal with our ARPA projects. You'll remember that the county granted us $3 million out of their ARPA funds so that we could work on some projects that were mainly benefited both us and the Parks and Recreation Department. And we have a 2-year window to expend these funds. So these are the year 1 projects. So the first one was a refurbishment of Bruton High School. Their gym. This is not a full renovation, but we did include refinishing the floor, repainting the game lines, and a new center court logo. We also had HVAC duct repairs that needed to happen, electric winches for side court basketball goals, and this was ready for the first day of school. And so here's a look at what it looked like before this refurbishment began. And you'll notice how dark the floor finish was. That amber really comes up after years of use. And the HVAC ductwork had seen better days. And here's what it looks like today. So the brand new floor, you can see the finish. The ductwork has been painted. And it's in really good shape. That was a picture from September 8th. And here's a picture of the new center court logo. Now, this was right after they lifted the stencil. And so you can still see the paint or the tape on the floor where they're painting the lines, but a good representation. Then, of course, there are 2 more finish coats went over this, and that's why this one doesn't look as shiny as the picture before. And then it was ready the first day of school, and it's back in action on September 8th for the first volleyball game. So that's looking really good. Next gym renovation is Queens Lake. You'll remember that last year we did both Tab Middle and Yorktown Middle, sorry. And so here's the status from that. Like I said, similar to those other 2 gyms. And here's a picture before that renovation. Note the resilient flooring. Now we install this in a lot of our elementary schools, and it works very well for the elementary PE classes, but it doesn't hold up for competition level basketball games. And so here it is on September 10th. This morning, students got use of this. We had to wait for the finish coats to dry. This is still missing the crash pads, and the contractors started that today also. They were able to do that while students were occupying the gym. So that is now operational. And I really like their new center court logo. It's just very sharp, I think, and looks, they did a great job with that. But my personal favorite is the next project you heard Dr. Shandor mention. The playground at Tab L was severely overdue for repairs, and we had to remove the wood mulch. We needed to put in some extensive underground drainage system. We put in new rubber mulch, and sidewalks were installed, and this was ready for the first day of school. So first of all, the typical view of that playground after a regular rain. It didn't even have to be unusual. And this is what it looks like today, and the rain is being handled. And so even after heavy rains, there's no standing water, drainage, and the rubber mulch is a much better fit. And that's as of September 10th. And then we had similar, not as bad, but similar situations with the lower grade playgrounds on the other side of the campus. And so what's left there now is some additional summer projects. We did have a couple more that were completed, but we didn't bring in pictures. Number one's the Coventry Elementary soccer field drainage improvements. Not really much to show, but it is working better. And we did add some additional security measures to the school board office. And then we have just a few more projects in progress. The Queens Lake Middle security vestibule, now that all of our schools have one, that vestibule is operational, but we still have a couple more things to do to it. We'll bring you pictures next month. The Bruton High School AstroTurf football field, we had our pre-construction meeting on September 6th, and construction commenced the next day on the 7th. So they're off and running with that. And Bethel Manor also has a drainage improvement project that is still not quite started. And that concludes my report, and I always welcome any questions you may have.
Not a question. I did have a chance to see the Tab Elementary playgrounds over the summer, and they look fantastic. I mean, it's totally different. It's great. I'm sure the kids are enjoying it.
With Seaford, I know there was a question at open house, probably before open house, what they were going to do about recess. Just having to take kids through kind of the construction zone if they were going to go around, or what was worked out for that?
Well, they're working with Mr. Shearhart, and the principal are working for good plans to keep the kids safe, keep them separate from the construction. But this will be a difficult year to have to navigate that. There's some areas, like they have a nice a green area right in the front of the school, but if it rains at all in that time period or real near that, that holds a lot of water. So that one's a difficult one. They're just going to have to navigate the best they can. This will be a short inconvenience, but next year they're going to be dealing with a better situation.
Bailey Field got taken care of rather quickly, and then I thought we were going to start on Bruton right after that.
Well, we had to wait for funds to be available, but also that was a different situation. That was just a replacement.
Right? Yeah.
So they peeled that off, an amazing process. It only took about 6 people in a forklift, and some sharp knives, I guess. But then they just made sure that the stone that was below it was to grade, and then they just rolled out the new turf. So that was a different ballgame.
Right.
Here we're removing a lot of dirt. We're dealing with the existing drainage that was there, and we're actually going to do some tying into that and using that because it was still in good shape. It was just everything in between.
Right.
And but we're going to add additional drainage capacity there, and then you bring stone in. It won't take as long as you would think it would. To do a grass field would take much longer, and then you'd have to navigate around the grass growing season. So once we get going, start laying stone, this is going to move very quickly.
Okay. Do we have a
I'm not giving
target
you
date?
but we hope to have some of the end of season games there.
Oh, well, that would be good.
Because that's our target.
In case you hadn't noticed, Bruton's been winning a few games.
You're measuring a week at a time.
Any other questions? No. All right, thank you, Dr. Carroll. All right, next agenda item, it relates to policy section I. Dr. Shandor?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Carltz. I know that in our last regular meeting in August, Ms. Skinner presented quite a few policies under section I. So this evening, we want to give you an opportunity if you had any follow-up questions for her relating to this section. I know you had one.
I do have questions. It was a lot, so I want to say, first of all, thank you, because I know you've been working on this the entire summer. You're probably sick of reading it, sick of talking about it, and I know I broke it into chunks to kind of digest it. So my first question was about, I think it was IGAI. It was about character education. There was a statement in there that says, notifying within 30 days if there was any graphic sexual content or violent content. And so my question is, first of all, is there graphic sexual or violent content in the character education?
So, no, there is not, and nor is there in our anti-bullying lessons either. We added that language first because when we do policy review, we look at, of course, the Code of Virginia, but we also go into the Virginia School Board Association policy. Those are model policies, and we really try to align to those as much as possible. And that was a statement that's in the Virginia School Board policy that we did not have, so we added that. And it also aligns to our policy IIA, which gives parents the opportunity to review any materials. And lastly, there is a new policy that's going to be coming out from Virginia, it was released in September, from the Virginia Department of Education, and this language actually mirrors a policy that they've developed for us that I'll be sharing more about in the next month or so with the board.
And then my other question was IIBD, and it was about school libraries and about with the change to having principals have the final say in any library materials. I think before it said school board, and now it's principal. Can you kind of explain why that change happened?
Sure. So school boards approve materials that are instructional materials like textbooks that we use across the division. Principals have always been responsible for approving supplemental instructional materials because ultimately they purchase those materials and so they sign off on them. We wanted to put some clarity around this. We're in the process of developing an SREG around the refining, I should say, not developing, refining an SREG that talks about our process for purchasing library books. So it just kind of streamlines that process, puts greater emphasis around collaboration when we're selecting those books. And so our principals ultimately would be responsible for purchasing them, but they also will be responsible for approving the purchase of those books.
And when there is a question from a parent or community member about something that's in the library, what's the process that they go through if they have a question about a book?
Certainly, they should reach out to the school principal, and our policy says reach out to the school principal. And the principal will meet with the parent, address their questions and their concerns. And then if there's some reason they want to pursue a challenge or something of that nature, there is a process for doing that as well.
Is there a form or something that they would then fill out?
There is a form, and the principal can help the parent through that process.
Okay, thank you.
So my question was, at a statement, we already had the parental rights. I mean, parents always had the right to come review what we're
Correct.
teaching them. I never had that problem when my kids went to school. But the policy reviews from my questions to you earlier, when I was asking for some clarification on one policy, is it really just solidifies and clarifies what the parents' rights are, so it makes them stronger? Is that a good word, or what would be the best way to describe these policy revisions?
The ones that are in section I?
Yes.
Well, we review policy, of course, every
We
4 to
do.
5 years. And so when we reviewed the policy, we looked at the Virginia School Board Association, and we also want to make sure that what's in our policy is what we are practicing. And sometimes when you review every few years, you've got to make sure, okay, what are we doing here? It's just a really good practice for us. And the refining of the parental rights is just to make sure that parents have a clear understanding of what they're, that they have the ability to look at anything that's used as instructional materials for their students, and that if there is anything that would have a graphic nature, we are responsible for letting them know.
Okay, good. And I think the other question I had a week or so ago when you first presented this was about the Pledge of Allegiance. And a lot of that was just some verbiage of one word being changed or whatever to align with the VDOE and
Correct.
their change.
Yes, so we changed, I think, shall to is. And there was in there it spoke about he, meaning a student named he.
Right.
We just changed it to generic
A
student.
student.
Other
Okay,
than
makes
that, there's
sense.
no major change to
That's
that.
what I saw. Okay, thank you.
No, clarification and alignment. So, I mean, that's key, and we're always seeking that anyways.
And I think putting the emphasis on the parental rights, it makes it more transparent. I mean, because we have nothing to hide.
Absolutely.
We want everyone to be involved and to know about it.
And we want our parents to partner with us. We've always
Absolutely.
feel strongly about that. The policy that I'll bring to you in the next month or so really solidifies that even further. Virginia Department of Education has put some more emphasis on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Skinner.
Thank you, Ms. Skinner.
All right. Next report is our FY 18 to 22 Strategic Plan and Academics Report. Dr. Shandor.
Thank you, Ms. Geralds. Every September, we look forward to coming to the board and sharing our results from the past spring. And this evening, Dr. Karen Cagle, Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and Dr. David Wrights, our Director of Leadership and Accountability, are going to share presenting to you related to the strategic plan update, as well as some data points related to student academic progress for FY22. Dr. Cagle, Dr. Wrights.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Shandor, good evening. Tonight, Dr. Cagle and I will provide a final presentation on the 2018-2022 strategic plan goals, as well as provide additional data that shows our students' progress from the past year. This is a great slide that we're very proud of, that all 19 of our schools are fully accredited. And we attribute this success to our commitment and effort of our students, our teachers, our administrators, our York County community. And because of this collective effort of these groups, we continue to achieve at high rates year after year. On September 22nd, the VDOE will issue a news release regarding the state accreditation data. Until that time, this data remains preliminary. As you can see from this slide, we will be finishing off reporting out from our last strategic plan. Now Dr. Cagle is going to walk you through specific student data outcomes and processes in place to support our student learning.
Thank you, Dr. Rice. We'll begin with our reading data this evening. On this slide, you will see last year's reading pass rates for the state and for York County School Division in grades 3 through 8, and end of course, which is grade 11 for us. And at all levels, we have exceeded the state average. And keep in mind, as you know, that FY22 was our students' first full year back in the classroom, following school closures in 2020 due to COVID. So now let's look at our students' performance compared to students pre-COVID. So this chart compares last year's reading performance with that from FY19. Scores from students in grades 3, 4, 8, and 11 exceeded those of students in the same grade levels in FY19. We recognize that students' performance in grades 5, 6, and 7 have not returned to pre-pandemic levels. Our teachers, including our elementary and middle school reading specialists, have several strategies in place to support literacy instruction, and I'll share more about this later in my presentation. So on this slide, we'll take a look at math. Our students' performance on the math standards of learning assessments yielded scores that were also above the state average in all grades. And we really do applaud the hard work of our students, teachers, and families, as this was our first full year back in person following 2 years of remote, hybrid, and blended learning. This slide shows how our student scores compared with those of their peers pre-COVID. At this time, we have not reached the pre-pandemic levels in the area of math overall. This is a pattern that we've seen across the nation, as noted in research conducted by several organizations, including the National Assessment of Education Progress, or NAEP, you may have heard of it called, and also the Northwest Evaluation Association. However, we are making progress in math, and I want to show you that on the next slide. So what you see here is last year's performance compared to that of 2020, 2021. And as you can see, there are gains at all levels. One area of noted concern is Math 7, which shows a 57% pass rate. And just to give you some background information, there are 3 math pathways at the middle school level. Math 7 is considered on grade level math for 7th graders. 43% of our 7th graders take Math 7, and so that's a smaller number. It's not all of the 7th grade students. And so I'll share more information with you later in the presentation as well about how we're going to address Math 7 moving forward. As you've seen in math and reading, science performance is above state average in all areas as well. Our focus with the return of in-person learning was to increase opportunities for hands-on instruction in scientific investigation and lab work. And with face-to-face instruction, we were able to provide more opportunities for these real-world, authentic experiences in the science classroom. Here you can see the comparison of science scores for last year and those in 2018, 2019. Considering the impact of remote and hybrid learning over the previous 2 years, we'll continue to implement hands-on strategies. We'll also utilize professional development and our professional learning communities to address the needs of our students in the area of science. Now Dr. Wright is going to share information on state accreditation.
So this matrix outlines the different levels of accreditation, and as I mentioned earlier in the presentation, all of our 19 schools are fully accredited. However, there are a few schools that fall into the leveled categories based on their subgroup performance. The next slide, I'm going to talk to you about the preliminary accreditation status of each of those schools. So let me walk you through this chart. If you look to the far left, the school quality indicators, you can see the achievement gap for English. 17 of our 19 schools are at a level 1. If you look at level 2, we have 2 schools that fall at that level, and Yorktown Middle School falls at the level 2 for the subgroups of Black, economically disadvantaged, and students with disabilities. We also then have the York High School that falls at a level 2 for their subgroup of students with disabilities. We have one level 3 school for chronic absenteeism, and that is YRA. And so chronic absenteeism is basically defined as missing 10% or more of the school year regardless of the reason. So it should be noted that the number of students enrolled in school significantly impacts that data. Dr. Cagle is now going to talk to you about Bruton High School and how they are supporting our English learner subgroup student population.
Well, last spring, Bruton High School teachers and staff, they offered an engagement and learning opportunity for our English learners and their families in the Bruton zone. The theme of the evening was Taking the Journey into Tomorrow, and it took place in our Bruton's Learning Commons. As you can see from the pictures on the slide here, families participated in several fun activities to learn more about the school and the local community. They also learned about academic and career pathways. In addition, Bruton has started a new club for our English learners called the L Culture Club, and those students who were recently inducted were celebrated that night as well. And this is just one of the examples of how our schools support learning beyond just the classroom experience. So our second objective of tonight's presentation is focused on grade 3 reading, and 90% of all third grade students reading at or above grade level as measured by the standards of learning, and you probably remember that objective from our previous strategic plan. Well, this graph shows, it provides state and division comparison data from 2018-19 and last school year. York County School Division continues to outperform the state. Additionally, we have seen a 3 percentage point increase in the scores of last year's third grade students compared to third grade students in 2018. So next I want to share the progress of our youngest learners. So students in kindergarten through second grade, they don't take this so well. They take the Phonological Awareness Literacy Screening, or PALS assessment, to predict future reading success. The orange coloring on the bar graphs that you see indicates the percentage of students who did not meet the end of the year PALS benchmark. These students do receive reading interventions. We are pleased to see an increase in the number of students scoring at or above the benchmark at each level, as represented in the green. We attribute this to the return to full-time in-person instruction, as well as the incredible work of our elementary teachers. Additionally, we're seeing the results of York County School Division's investment in providing professional development on the science of reading. We used ESSER funds so that 90 teachers were trained in this methodology this past year. So I'd like to share the comprehensive work done in the area of reading instruction at Yorktown Elementary School this last year. And this is just representative of elementary schools across the school division. But their work began at the very beginning of the year when teachers and paraeducators participated in professional development on evidence-based reading instruction. And this was carried into the classroom, and then throughout the year, they held regular, ongoing professional learning communities for literacy, where they worked with our division coordinator and literacy coaches to unpack curriculum, to analyze data in order to address specific student needs. Additionally, the school held after-school remediation and facilitated quarterly family literacy nights, where the families were able to come ahead of time and pick up materials to participate in working with their children with reading instruction on the night of the event. And you're going to hear more from Yorktown Elementary next month during Accidental Academics, and they'll be sharing more of this work.
So beyond our PALS data and our SOL data, we look at also additional student progress data, such as student growth, on-time graduation, and college career and civic readiness indicator, sometimes referred to as CCCRI. As a team, we met on a regular basis to discuss individual students, put plans in place, and targeting the student success. Up to this point, we have shared student pass rates. Last year, the state provided us with an opportunity to also measure growth for all students, as well as to determine the unfinished learning from FY21. These growth assessments looked at fall student performance and compared it to performance on the SOL in the spring. So let me give you an example of how this works with student growth. So a student that is enrolled in 5th grade takes the mathematics test last year and completes the fall growth assessment based on 4th grade mathematics content, and their performance is compared to their spring SOL results to determine growth. This chart shows student pass rates and growth from last year in grades 3 through 5. The green indicates combined pass rate. The blue indicates the percentage of students who didn't pass their SOL test but made growth. So in reading, 5% of the students who did not pass showed growth, and in math, 7% of our students who did not pass showed growth. I'm going to jump over then to middle school for grades 6 through 8. And this chart also shows the student growth pass rates. In reading, 4% of the students who did not pass showed growth, and in math, 8% of the students who did not pass showed growth. This year, the state has not determined how the growth assessment scores will be used in determining accreditation for the 22-23 school year. We will share more information once that becomes available. I love this slide. YCSD has a graduation rate of 98%. So a graduation rate, the on-time graduation rate for Virginia is on-time graduation rate is based on the student's level data tracked over their time in high school. As a team, from each high school, along with members from the SBO, we met monthly to discuss student supports to be put into place to help aid on-time graduation success. Our guidance departments do an amazing job supporting our students and making sure requirements are met and getting students to walk across the stage in June. Now, Dr. Cagle is going to discuss CCCRI and steps in place for moving forward.
So the College Career and Civic Readiness Indicator, or CCCRI as you'll hear it referred to, is scheduled to be a part of the accreditation ratings this school year. tonight we're providing data from last year for informational purposes only. Before I start with that data, I'd like to give you just a brief overview. CCCRI measures how many of our seniors successfully engage in college, career, and civic readiness opportunities throughout their high school experience. There are 4 ways, as you can see on the slide, that students can accomplish this. They can receive credit for advanced coursework, such as AP, IB, or dual enrollment. They can complete a career technical education sequence and take a CT credential, receive a CT credential, or they can complete a work-based learning experience or a service learning experience. And these are unduplicated counts, so each student only counts once. And if they participate multiple ones, they still only count one time. And the value of this is that it recognizes that there are multiple pathways post-secondary, which I really like a lot. So here you can see our work towards meeting this goal back in 2018, 2019, and then this past year. So earlier in the presentation, Dr. Wright shared the accreditation matrix and explained that there are 3 levels, and that's the same for CCCRI because this will be part of accreditation this school year. So it's important to note that schools that are a level 1, as indicated by the green line, meet or exceed the requirements at 85% or more students completing one or more of the experiences I just shared with you. At level 2, schools are near the standard or they're making sufficient improvement with 71 to 84% of students engaging in readiness experiences. And at level 3, a school is below standard as indicated with the red line. As you can see, 4 of our 5 high schools fell within level 2 this year, last year, and YRA was a level 1. With our increased focus on CCCRI, we are confident our schools will continue to make progress in this area. So now I'd like to take just a moment and share the work that we're doing this year. Some of the things that we're doing, we're updating several of our curriculum guides. This includes our elementary literacy model that we're going to incorporate the science of reading into that model. We're conducting an in-depth analysis of our Math 7 curriculum to make revisions there. In addition, we'll provide additional support for remediation, and this includes a revised response to intervention program and also division-wide coaching staff for elementary math and secondary literacy. We're going to continue expanding our academic and career opportunities for our students through our program of studies, and you're going to hear more from me on that this year as I present the program of studies additions throughout the school year. And finally, we'll continue to provide purposeful training for our teachers that is targeted to their professional goals and to student learning. This will include training 90 more teachers in the science of reading, so we're excited about that. So this concludes our presentation tonight, but we're more than happy to take any questions or comments that you may have.
Can I just ask a clarifying question about the Math 7 scores, with those being, lower, and it's whether it's last year to this year or pre-COVID to now, there's always been a difference there. Did I understand correctly that the students who are in 7th grade but taking a math course that's not that standard Math 7 don't count into that percentage?
Right. If they're in 7th grade and they're taking pre-algebra, they'll take the 8th grade test. And if they're in 7th grade and they're taking algebra, they'll take the algebra test. So 43% of our students are on grade level at 7th grade taking that 7th grade test.
Okay, so it's just 43% of that 7th grade that's actually counting for that score. Okay.
Good question.
A clarifying question for me too. When we talk about the service learning experience, that's through a class?
Correct? It is through a class. We actually have a service learning class in our program of studies. It's been in there for a while, but it really hasn't been picked up by very many students. So we made some revisions to it last year, and Yorktown Academy really piloted it this year and had some success. So we've opened it up to all of our schools, that course in particular, because it does have to meet the guidelines from the state to be counted towards CCCRI. It can't be a
That's-
Eagle Scout project or something like that.
That's
There's
my next
there
we
are
have so many kids who are serving our community
Exactly.
in so many capacities. It's just a shame that some of that can't be counted
Well,
towards what they're.
This is a great course, though, and it's something they probably should look into because they really get to identify something within their community that really needs support with, and they really go through a very comprehensive process.
And if I could add to that too, that one of the great things about the service learning class is it touches on the 5 C's. Communication, collaboration, so the teachers plan these projects, but students are asked to do a lot of public speaking and those types of things. So they're building on those future-ready skills that we want them to have as part of that course, but they're also giving back. It's a great way for students who enjoy that type of experience, but it also ties in those 5 C's.
And are we going to partner with somebody to do tutoring again this year?
We do have FEV
Okay.
tutoring this year.
I just didn't know if that was going to continue after.
It's already started.
It did,
Sorry,
it just, information just went out in our communication to families, and we actually have our, thank you, our digest. And we actually have parent sessions, Dr. Sherlock, correct, coming up soon?
End of September.
Yes, end of September, we're gonna offer those parent sessions again, so they can learn a little bit more about it. Yes, we're using ESSER funds to do that this year.
I know I've gotten a couple emails, after a lot of this data was released and, what are you gonna do about the learning gap? What are you gonna do about the learning gap? And my question probably seems disrespectful when I email back, but it isn't. It's just, we're gonna do what has always been done. You're gonna assess where kids are, figure out what they need, and then move forward with the plan. That hasn't changed pre-pandemic, post-pandemic, any of those kinds of things. Our teachers are always going to do that. They're gonna figure out where the kids are and move them forward. And all of these supports that you talk about are just adding to that. I mean, I think about all that work done over the summer. All of that stuff is just helping propel them forward. All these kids across the nation, have felt the past couple of years, but
You're right, it's a more holistic solution, and we've got a model. We've had great success with the K-5 literacy model. I suspect we're taking those same processes and focusing on science and math where we haven't seen a significant increase. Am I right?
Correct,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, all right.
And anytime a parent wants more information about that, please tell them to reach out. Be happy to talk in more detail about, we have many, many different things that we're doing to help shore up that gap and to make sure our students continue to make progress.
Yeah, the key now is to measure the progress, and we've got the growth assessments and all of that in place to measure progress here in the coming years as we close that gap, because we're not going to close it in 12 or 18 months, so
Right.
absolutely.
But one thing that I'm encouraged about was I was looking at the 3rd grade reading, and even though we didn't hit our 90%, 86% is getting a lot closer, and it's better than it was pre-pandemic.
Absolutely.
So, and these are the guys that were 1st and 2nd graders during those 2 years when school was rough.
Exactly.
And they, I know they've been worked with quite a bit, and I'd say that the tutoring and everything else has been showing the results for it. So I looked at that as great news.
And we need to continue the ambitious goal setting, the CCCRI. Did I do too many Cs? Is
Oh,
that
you
4
got
or
it.
3? Yeah, how about the C3RI? C3, that was always a very ambitious goal, and we're making gains, and that's good to see too. So as we work through our KPIs and some of those dynamics in the strategic plan, let's continue to reach. Aspirational is important, so yeah, thank you.
and I think we all got a lot of data that was sent to us, and just looking at where York County School Division ranks in this data as compared to the region.
Yeah.
Don't like to
I
compare
see in the
ourselves,
open
but
media
very,
where
very
we're
proud of.
in the open media
How we
where we're
rank.
not showing up as readily in the comparisons.
Yeah,
So.
definitely kudos to everybody. All right, any other questions? All right. Thank you, Dr. Cagle. Thank you, Dr. Wright.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, our next is our strategic technology review report.
Nope, F.
Our strategic plan report. There we go.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you.
Please don't ask me to talk about technology.
Ms. Catherine Goff, our Public Relations and Communications Officer, is going to provide information related to the FY 23-27 Strategic Plan Report. Ms. Goff.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair, board members, and Dr. Shandor for this opportunity to share the latest in the work that has been ongoing as we've built the FY 23 through 27 strategic plan. Tonight, I will be sharing information about the actions we've taken to launch the plan division-wide, as well as updates on how we will monitor and measure our progress over the next 5 years. So following the board's adoption of the vision, mission, core values, and priorities in May, we continued to work on the development and refinement of other various aspects of the plan so that we could begin that division-wide launch. Our very first event that we shared several of these aspects was Leadership Academy. We had our principals, our assistant principals, key school-based staff, and key SBO staff in attendance. This was just a phenomenal activity. We first launched with a presentation style event and then moved into small group settings where we really worked to connect the team members with the components. As you see on the screen right there, one of the groups was doing puzzles that related to highly effective talent, meaning that every employee in the division is a piece of the puzzle in our success. So really a lot of great activity there. And then they also provided even more feedback to help us inform our next steps as we finalized other activities of the plan. We also wanted to make sure that beyond school-based and division leadership, that every member of Team YCSD is familiar with and understands the plan. So we developed for the first time ever a cascade rollout. This involved all of our school-based leadership teams and members of the division's leadership team, all of our department heads, sharing these same activities or same information that we provided at Leadership Academy with their own departments and schools. Schools then began developing their school improvement plans using part of the model. They specifically have been using the school improvement plans to follow the theory of action from our strategic plan. And if you'll recall, the theory of action is our if-then. If we do this, this will happen, and it's how we drive expected outcomes. So all of those have occurred. The culminating activity from each of those cascade sessions was a signing of a commitment card. Every employee was provided a commitment card to personalize their role in the plan. So I think you guys remember seeing this previously when you signed your own. This is the front side of the pledge where it shares, again, the vision, the mission, the 5 core values, and then to personalize it, we each identified a core value we will model in year 1, and in most cases we shared that with each other at our different activities and signed it. We then on the back side asked staff to look at the 4 priority areas and identify which priority they felt that they were going to best help the division in successfully implementing. It does say please select more than one. We have individuals who selected 1, 2, and even all 4 that they felt confident and committed to supporting. And then a describe how you help students succeed section where they could really share about how they personally plan to impact student success over the next year in year 1. What I have loved most about this rollout and the way we approach this plan this year is the feedback we've received from all of our team members. Folks have stopped into my office or I've been out in schools and we've talked about the core values, how much they really resonate with them this year. In fact, it's been popular enough that in several of our sessions, school administration especially has brought in partner agencies. So we have had Sodexo staff, Right at School staff, and even our own SROs taking part in sessions and then signing their own commitment card. So they've been really excited about it. But one of the other things that people have shared with me is, they really see themselves in this plan. They know what their personal role, they know for the first time how they can affect the change in our division. Dr. Shandor, did you want to share any of your interactions?
Yeah, I think part of this is ownership, and I think that our staff members, you have 1,800 staff members, they've owned the strategic plan. This isn't something that's being done with them. We've done this with them. I've had the opportunity recently to speak with Dr. Carroll and I. We're actually at, I believe, Tab High School with the bus drivers when Mr. Hargrove was presenting to them. And he got to stand up and present the strategic plan, and the bus drivers loved it. It made sense for them. It was common sense. They were having competitions in who would know the 5 core values versus the 4 areas of the plan. So I thought that went really well. When I'm in schools walking around, teachers approach me all the time and just tell me how this makes sense and how they feel their connection to the plan and how they're going to contribute to our success. In the community, it happens when I'm at Walmart. So it's nice to hear from many of our staff members that really can relate to and engage in this plan.
Yes, and we have asked all staff members to have them visible whether that be in the bus, somewhere on the bus, in their cubicle, in their office, or in their classroom. We really wanted them out there as not only a reminder to ourselves what we chose, but to help drive that conversation and keep what we hold important and why we hold it important at the forefront of what we're doing. So please, I encourage you when you're visiting our schools, look for the cards and engage those teachers in it because they are passionate. So are the secretaries, all of the staff are very passionate about why they selected what they did select on their cards. Now I'd like to move into how we will monitor and measure our progress. Refreshing your memory on some of the terms we have used. We are developing a data dashboard, and that is going to be high-level data and performance metrics that we know are important to our vision, mission, and priorities, and they help us in making decisions. Amongst the data dashboard, there we also have key performance indicators, otherwise known as KPIs. These are key data and metrics we believe will be most impactful in demonstrating that we're making that progress. So we'll be monitoring certain data points and we'll be measuring others to show that we are moving. One of the examples that I found has been really easy to help folks understand the differences in this is we just spoke about on-time graduation rates. York County School Division has a 98% on-time graduation rate. So while we want to keep it there and we want to keep an eye on that, we can't necessarily move that needle in such an impactful way at that level at the division, whereas looking at elementary reading readiness in grades K through 3, we know this is a foundational skill for all of our learners, so we need to keep that in the forefront and look for that growth and see measurable growth from year to year. Now I want to move on to those 4 priorities that we talked about, starting first with collective commitment. This is that students, staff, families, and community members are invested in student outcomes and actively engaged in meaningful, collaborative relationships to support student success. We've already talked about that a bit tonight, about how important it is to have those partnerships. So we looked at that and found 3 areas of focus. The 3 areas of focus here are communication, specifically looking at timely, open, and two-way communication, back and forth, not just the pushing of information. Outreach is where we identify the needs of our students and staff, and we work to partner with the appropriate individuals or organizations to support those needs. And then engagement is about working with our families, students, team members, and community members that they know they have a voice and they believe that their input and feedback is meaningful and valued. So, how do we measure that we're making moves in those areas of focus? On the screen are the KPIs, the key performance indicators for collective commitment. We also have on the screen how often we will monitor those areas and the tentative reporting dates that we would bring information in a more detailed format to the board. So the topics for collective commitment are family and community engagement, volunteers, partnerships, our social media accounts, and those are the school-based and division accounts, the official accounts for those, not individual personal accounts, and as well as customer service. And as you can see, we may monitor one topic monthly, depending on what that could look like, quarterly, or even annually, depending on how much information we might have at our fingertips. And we would begin reporting the FY22 data for that topic at the end of this school year. So I'm going to be sharing mostly when we will have FY22 data available. When we move on to supportive culture, where we provide safe, welcoming, and caring environments in which all students and staff have a sense of belonging and purpose. Again, there are 3 areas of focus in this. We have learning environment and working conditions. This is really looking at both the physical components and the personal components of where we work and learn on a daily basis in YCSD. And of course, professional growth. This is recognizing and taking opportunities to grow the skills of our staff so that we both support the individual and we're meeting the division's needs while we do that. And there are, again, 5 key performance indicators here. This is student attendance. We've talked about that again tonight. We talked a little bit about how important it is that our students are in school, and we need to focus on that area, so it is definitely a KPI for us. We will look at that one monthly, and you would start seeing that and student behavior reports occurring after the first semester of this school year. School discipline, secondary school climate surveys, and working conditions are also considered performance indicators for our supportive culture area. You would be seeing some of that information again later this school year, but others, the FY22 information would not be available until next fall. So that's what we call a lag year data. So you will see that occurring throughout the plan. Highly effective talent. Of course, we must attract and retain highly skilled, compassionate, diverse, and committed team members by providing personalized and differentiated pathways for professional growth, improvement, and advancement. We actually have 4 areas of focus here, but you will notice that one of them on the far right, professional growth, that is an overlap between supportive culture because both are impactful to us. A compensation package, we define that as more than just the salary scale. That includes all of the associated benefits someone has for being employed with the division. Recruitment is more than just holding a job fair or trying to get applicants. It's also about offering that employment, onboarding them, and having them become a member of Team YCSD. Retention is the approaches we take to reduce employee turnover. And then we will look at, again, the KPIs here. You will note all of the KPIs under highly effective talent are annual in nature, just due to the types of information we'll be evaluating there. The licensed salary scale comparison, health benefits comparison, working conditions, again, that crossover between supportive culture and highly effective talent. Employee retention rates, that's a 5-year, employees who have been with the division for 5 years or longer. And then the regional lateral employee moves, so those moving in or out of YCSD locally to a position of the same nature. And then finally, future-ready graduates. This is where students will acquire knowledge, skills, habits, and traits necessary for success in future educational experiences, the workforce, and life. Once again, there are 4 areas of focus here. High-quality instruction. This is really focusing more on the curriculum and teaching practices that occur in the classroom. The engaging educational experiences are how our teachers deliver that instruction and curriculum to engage students, implying they're getting their curiosity moving and applying critical thinking skills. College and career readiness, of course, making sure that they're prepared with the skills and knowledge they need to be successful post-graduation. And life readiness, which are more of the disposition and character traits that not only support student success, but also develop civic-minded students as they graduate. So these KPIs are quarterly and annual reviews, beginning with elementary reading readiness. We've spoken about that, grades K through 3. The secondary EOC, or end of course assessments. The PSAT, college and career readiness benchmark. The CTE enrollment and certification rates. Again, those are all annual right there. And the CCCRI we have talked about tonight, making sure we get all of those C's in there in that report. So wrapping this up, we are currently building that entire data dashboard that will have not only those 19 KPIs, but additional information. It's being built through Power BI in partnership with all of the departments who are providing the various metrics, which you were provided more in-depth information in your packets about what specific to each of those key performance indicators it means that we would be looking for. So it's a lot of work. Our IT department and our senior program analyst who designs our website are working very closely together to build that in a way that is visually appealing and easy to understand for our community. Once it is up and functioning, we will bring it back before the board to sort of show you how to interact with it. And then as a reminder, what it will have on there is about 20 metrics, I believe, that we have rated as part of the data dashboard, and of course the 19 key performance indicators that are going to be on there. So a lot of information. We want it to be at our community's disposal pretty much as frequently as we're looking at it. They will have the opportunity to look at it. And that concludes my report on the work we have done since the last time I spoke to you. Myself and members of the team are ready to answer any questions you may have for us tonight. Thank you.
It's going to be nice to see a data dashboard that doesn't have COVID cases and quarantines and everything like that.
Amen.
Yeah. So the one thing I will say, the difference between the previous strategic plan and this one is I feel like, not that there was anything wrong with the previous one, but this one is just so much more easy to understand and to see where you fit in, from a school board member to a central office staff to a teacher, anybody, custodial staff, bus drivers, everyone can figure out how they fit in, what they can do to help it. Otherwise, it just feels like it's sort of written and then put on a shelf somewhere. And it's like, yeah, that's our strategic plan over there. We'll look at it in 4 more years when we have to do the new one. So it's just so visually friendly and easy to understand. The readability of it is really impressive. So I just want to give a kudos to the team for coming up with that. And just as a reminder, for anyone who's watching at home, just all the different meetings that was done to go into it, getting community input, student input, teacher input, to create this, I think is what really helped to make it so so cohesive for everyone to be able to rally behind for it. I'm really excited to see how it kickstarts our progress as we're going. I think it's fitting for it to be discussed right after we're talking about our growth and our goals with those results that we've gotten. So that's all I wanted to say. It wasn't quite a question, but.
No, I don't think you can overstate the rollout. And I want to congratulate the division. The rollout's been remarkable. The features like theories of action, as Mr. Higginbotham mentioned, all the appropriate stakeholders involved since the very, very beginning. We have a great deal of momentum. And I think all of us on the industry side, even my military experience, I have been party to a lot of strategic planning, a lot of rollouts, a lot of messaging. And I'm just going to, this is without the doubt the best experience I've seen, because it is a driver, it is affecting culture. And I think that's those are strong comments, but I've had the same observations. It's led off at the academies, whether it's the Transportation Academy, at the Leadership Academy. That's critically important. So it's got the right emphasis, the right priority. That we have that momentum, and now the KPIs may likely change through stakeholder input and some of those. We've got our metrics and our measures and targets. We want to look at how many of those can be leading versus lagging. I mean, so there's still some work to do, but I'm very, very impressed. And again, hats off to the entire team. The rollout has produced the momentum that we're going to need to do some of that harder work. So again, congratulations.
Thank
Really.
you, and I do appreciate you sharing the leading versus lagging, because it is possible that the ones we've shared, items that are currently on the dashboard, may move up, because if you see something starting to become an issue, you want to bring it in. So that is true that we will be able to move within those.
Absolutely, you're right. And it takes some creative thought to look at those from a leading standpoint and forecasting, but it's very doable, and we're doing some of that now.
The thing I liked was the commitment cards. I'm definitely going to look for those in all my school visits and all, because that's going to be fun, and to be able to engage the teachers and all the staff on what the core value that they're modeling this year is. It's going to be, I think that'll be a big thing.
I think the original goal was to make it a living, breathing document, and I think it's kind of evident that's what happened. And really, that everybody was saying, and I was just thinking, it's homegrown. It's not like we had somebody come in and hand us something and say, okay, work with this. It literally created from the ground up. So
They're messy, they're dirty.
Yeah.
The wordsmithing that goes
absolutely.
into these things. It's a lot of healthy debate with some of the folks behind us, our principals, the staff here at the table, our community members. We had students participate, as you guys said earlier. I couldn't be more proud of the product either. And again, I like that it's flexible, that we can move some of the KPIs or data dashboard topics forward when needed. We know where we need, those key performance indicators, we know right now we need to put the spotlight on those. We have a principals meeting on Wednesday. We're going to talk a little bit more about some other areas that we're going to focus on, but it's all directly related to the strategic plan. But I do want to share, not only I'm really proud of the work that Ms. Goff has done with all of our team members with the strategic plan. Our principals and directors and associate directors in various departments, they own this plan too. And they went back to their schools and they presented, and they owned this plan. They came up with a number of different activities to pull their staff members, to get them on the bus, so to speak, and they did a wonderful job with it. I think that's why we have so much good momentum going on, because the 19 of them plus Mr. Dolak and Mr. Hargrove and others who lead departments did a great job of doing that, and Mr. Mead as well behind me in the IT department. So if you're one of our employees, you have to feel, our goal is to make you feel connected to this plan.
We've heard the same feedback with the way the principals, speaking of that, with how they built their school improvement plans following the same type of model. Staff are saying the same thing about the school improvement plans and how they feel more connected to their school improvement plans at that level as well. So we're gonna keep up that momentum.
Yeah, anytime it can play the role, it's a key role in integration, you're having success. So, yeah, no, that's wonderful.
I love it when a principal says, this is what we're doing,
Mhm.
not what they told us to do,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's
Absolutely.
a big part of it.
I think it was great too. I mean, you got to see some of it. I got to see Mr. Hargrove presenting his, and if even half of our team presented it with that much passion, I mean, obviously that's where we're getting momentum, because he just did such a great job. It was great to see him.
I was
Somebody
really
presenting.
surprised he was kicking off with the strategic plan, and I thought
That's
to
great.
myself, this is perfect.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
this
great.
is perfect, and that was wonderful.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Ms. Scott.
Thank you, Ms. Goff.
The next item now is the strategic technology review report. Dr. Shandor?
Thank you, Ms. Geraltz. I'm now going to turn the item G, Strategic Technology Review Report, over to Dr. Carroll, who is going to introduce some of our guests this evening. Dr. Carroll?
Thank you, Dr. Shandor. Board members, last year the division issued an RFP looking for a consultant agency that could help us with reviewing our IT systems and our service. And this was what was also included was development of a strategic plan, an improvement plan. So we have another strategic improvement plan. But doing that, developing it with broad staff stakeholder input. And so that has been accomplished. You will see the complete report and the improvement plan in board docs. That's posted there. And tonight you'll hear from Don Bejin and Aaron Pravacik. They're here to highlight the strategic plan and take your questions. I do want to warn you, I mean, this thing has some weight to it. So they are just going to hit the highlights and work through kind of just the larger issues. And then if you want to dig in deeper, then refer to the report and the strategic plan itself. And after their presentation and you take their questions, I'll brief you on steps we've taken to date to start moving in this direction. So with that, Aaron, you'll begin.
Yep. Madam Chair, members of the board, Dr. Shandor and the school division leadership team. On behalf of the whole Barry Dunn team, we'd like to extend our thanks for the opportunity to serve the school division in development of your long-term IT strategic plan. I have just a brief agenda just to let you know what we're going to go over, just a couple introductions of myself and Don, drivers of this project, the work performed, and how we involved stakeholders to develop the reports that came out of this engagement. The identified and prioritized issues and opportunities relating to technology, the prioritized projects and initiatives methodology that we went through to build this plan, and then we'll talk about some of the key projects and initiatives, the budget and timeline matrix, and then of course governance of the plan, and be able to answer any questions you may have. With that, my name is Erin Provazic. I am the engagement manager on this. I am a manager within Barry Dunn. Just as an FYI, Barry Dunn is a management consulting firm out of Portland, Maine. You probably hear my accent. I'm a remote employee out of Texas. And I lead our technology management practice within our firm. We work with local governments nationwide. This is my 13th IT strategic planning engagement, and that's after spending 18 years in local government, municipal government for me, but we do this nationwide. So our experience in knowing what it takes to run enterprise information technology, and Don will fill you in a little bit on his background with schools. Anyway. And I've got all kinds of stuff behind my name as well. No doctor before my name, but lots of credentials that I can speak geek with the best of them. With that, Don?
So thank you for having us tonight. My name is Don Bejin, and I do have some nerdy abbreviations there as well. I am a retired Navy Chief Electronics, and I spent 20 years doing that, and after that I spent 18 years in K-12 as a Chief Information Officer. So school districts ranging from 12,000 to 150,000. And then I spent a short period of time working for both a town and school district. So I ran the IT department for both sides of that. I am a senior consultant and project manager with Barry Dunn as well. And Aaron and I work together on many projects. So I was particularly thrilled to do this engagement. I had a great time working with all the stakeholders in the teams, well, except for Jim. He's a taskmaster. But it was really interesting to me because I've spent so much time working in K-12, so it was really interesting to be able to come back to that and see how everything's going. And overall, I really enjoyed that. So, Aaron?
All right, so some of the drivers of this project, the schools division retained Barry Dunn to perform a strategic technology review, which encompassed an IT needs assessment and a plan to address those needs, which led to the IT strategic plan. Led by Dr. Carroll, with major contribution by Mr. Mead, IT Director, and his team, and Dr. Sherlock, Associate Director of Educational Technology and Innovation. The schools division wanted a process that emphasized active participation, collaboration, and continuous feedback throughout the engagement from start to finish on all areas of the schools division technology use. The needs assessment was conducted through collaboration with staff across all areas of schools division technology users, followed by a thorough review of what is already in place and what may be needed in the future. So on this slide, we're talking about the work performed. So I'm going to kind of go forward and backward a couple times on slides. But essentially, we started out this engagement with doing a survey. It was a SWOT survey, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. That was sent out to all technology users across the school division. And it was the purpose is that people tend to be a little bit more forthcoming with information, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats when they are anonymous. So that just gives us something to go on. When we did fact-finding meetings, which is the next bullet on there, Barry Dunn had a group of consultants interview with over 37 fact-finding meetings. We had interviewed over 140 participants across the schools division, including K through 12 teachers and students in the high schools. We used the information gained from the SWOT survey to dig in a little bit, to ask some more leading questions about things that we heard in those in the survey results, to dig a little deeper and try to find some trends, some challenges, issues, and opportunities, if you will. Those fact-finding meetings, after that, we developed the IT needs assessment report. That report summarized the current technology environment within the schools division and concluded with what we called a preliminary list of IT issues and opportunities. So with that, I'm going to move forward just a slide, and those issues and opportunities were identified or categorized into 3 different areas: management and operations, applications, and technical. You'll see there were 12, 14, and 8, respectively, of issues and opportunities identified there. Going back to the previous slide, we held a work session that included 32 participants across the schools division. Participated in that work session where we discussed those issues and opportunities. We debated them. Some people agreed, some people disagreed. We revised a couple of them to make sure that it was worded appropriately. Sometimes wordsmithing, just like was previously stated, that definitely happens. We had that long meeting. It was a little over 3 hours talking about those issues and opportunities. And at the end of that, each participant was allowed to vote, and they voted on the priority. So we had a good range of participation and voice across the schools division to prioritize the issues and opportunities that needed to be addressed with the strategic plan that came next. From there, I went forward a couple slides. We had stakeholders put together worksheets to develop their ideas for projects and initiatives that would address those issues and opportunities. Barry Dunn also came up with quite a list of projects and initiatives that we think would, or we thought would seek to address those issues and opportunities. We consolidated that and came up with projects and initiatives to include in the plan. Going back to that stakeholder participation slide, we had another work session where for another 3 hours, we talked about all of those projects and initiatives, what issues and opportunities they addressed. In fact, we added a few projects during that work session because it was engaging. Those projects, again, were voted on to help come up with an initial list or prioritized projects and initiatives that would go into the full IT strategic plan. The plan was then put together, and I'll talk a little bit about those steps. But then that plan was also reviewed by the core project team, making a few revisions to get it to its final version. So going to that projects and initiatives methodology, as we came up with that prioritized list of projects and initiatives, sometimes we take that list and the order in which they show up, that's where the project is planned to be executed over the planning horizon. This initially we were looking at it as a 10-year plan. We ended up figuring out that this could probably be done in about a 7-year time frame, so we adjusted that. We also kind of looked at some of the projects that we felt like, this probably needs to come before that. You're going to get success out of project, and I don't use these letters specifically, but project X might be better to execute in year 1 so that year 2's projects can be successful. So we talked about all of those with Dr. Carroll. We talked about budget. We talked about resources within IT and educational technology, and came up with the order and the timeline of projects and initiatives to include in the plan. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Don so he can talk about some of the key projects in the plan.
So just a couple comments. The school division projects and initiatives that I'm going to talk about are going to be, as Dr. Carroll noted, we're going to talk about these at a very high level for the next 5 slides. If you have any questions as I'm going through these slides, please feel free to ask, or at the end we're going to have some time set aside for questions. So in year 1, we proposed in our strategic plan work to Dr. Carroll and the rest of the team that there be 5 key initiatives. These are the most critical that need to take place in order to be able to launch off on the rest of the initiatives that are contained in the strategic plan. The first one is to establish a TGC, which is a Technology Governance Committee. And frankly, the school division, in conjunction with this effort, the school division needs to would benefit from maintaining an inclusionary process with all the stakeholders as they move forward to prevent initiatives from being introduced to the IT department post-decision. So in other words, someone's already made the decision, they come to IT and said, hey, this is what we're doing, how'd you like to make this happen for us? So one of the biggest benefits of having a governance committee is to do that. The second thing is that I'd like to celebrate the fact that the governance committee plan and communications plan that goes with that is already being developed and has passed through the cabinet for its initial run. And I think this is great news because this is really good, fast turnaround just in the time that that has been percolating since we turned this over. The next one is Initiative J, establishing a simplified, user-focused operating environment. And I'm just going to break this down into super simple terms. When we got the survey results and the fact-finding feedback from stakeholders across the school division, there was an indication that there was a significant perception of some inconsistencies in access to technology tools and resources. So we really tried to dig deep on that with teachers and administrators and staff across the school division. And what we found was that there was a consensus that solutions need to be simple, well planned and executed, and there needs to be effective training that is provided not only up front, but on an ongoing basis. And so you read through the rest of that at your leisure, but that's what came out of the simple user-focused operating environment. The next one is B, establishing a focused engagement practice between IT and technology stakeholders. We recommended that the IT director work with key stakeholder groups across the school division to understand the needs of both faculty and staff, while also adopting a practice of formal communications related to critical decisions to help ensure agreement and consensus. We believe that the IT director, by doing this, can build stronger relationships and rapport with other leaders across the school division. This in turn will foster greater understanding and trust, and also establish some key performance indicators that would enable stakeholders to see the results of the change that are occurring within IT. CC is to develop a multi-year sustainability plan for the existing one-to-one device initiative. The part that I'd like to celebrate is, as you already heard from the Chief Financial Officer, there's already work going on as far as financial resources. As you'll hear from Dr. Carroll in his comments later, there's already work around organizing other resources and scheduling around that. But again, establishing a broad and inclusive stakeholder working group to assess and develop and plan that sustainability initiative is something that we at Barry Dunn believe will bring the best benefits going forward. BB, plan and implement immediate improvements to the existing IT support services model. The improvements would improve the effectiveness, efficiency, and user satisfaction. Dr. Carroll is going to provide you with some updates on some initial efforts in this area in his next report. And I'm happy to say that this is another area that IT and Dr. Carroll have really started to launch on aggressively. So we'll leave that for him to celebrate. And then there are some two additional projects in year one. We didn't label these necessarily as critical, but they are projects that could be taken care of in year one that would provide some significant benefit for stakeholders across the school division. In year two, there's 6 projects that were described in the strategic plan. In year 3, we had 3 projects that were outlined there. Year 4, we had 4 projects. Year 5, there's 3. Year 6, we had 3. You see a pattern. We're trying not to have too many after year 1. Year 7, there were 3. And then what I'd like to point out here in the budget and timeline matrix is the kind of the cumulative total. Year 1 through 7, you have your costs. These are your high-level estimates of cost per year, and the total for the cost of the strategic plan over the course of its path. And then the last part is strategic plan governance. We really strongly believe that implementing this and staying true to that course of inclusion of stakeholders across the entire school division, the planning and executing of that governance and the allocation of appropriate resources will bring you future success for many years to come. And the biggest thing that I would close up with is to say that strategic government is going to governance will establish the process or the structure by which you can make adaptations for change over the course of your strategic plan span of time. Incorporating new projects into the plan, because we recognize, just like everyone else, that things will change as time advances and technology changes, and regulations and legislation. So you have to have a way to be able to make those changes. And you may not have the resources available to do things on a schedule that's currently in place. So having that governance plan and the ability to be more nimble, I think, is a critical thing. The last part is, are there any questions that we could answer for you?
We, in all of our discussions, particularly with the superintendent and cabinet, reinforce continuous improvement as part of our culture and a mindset. You can't do that unless you take these significant steps of having domain experts or third-party experts come in, do a needs analysis, even an audit in some respects, and take a hard look at where you are and where you need improvement and how we do that. We've done it with special education student services. We've done it also now with the enterprise IT. So my hat's off to the team. This is how we take steps forward. I wanted to highlight that. The other critical piece is you guys went, and Dr. Carroll, I don't want to speak for you, but the extra mile, this is laid out as a management company would lay it out, right? With regard to kind of cost, performance, and schedule. And this is how you enact this or action this. And all those enablers are in there. So my hat's off to Barry Dunn and to the two of you. For me personally, as soon as I went into the plan and started to look at it, I thought, let me go out to Barry Dunn and see, because you're not necessarily an IT company. Yeah, and it occurred to me when I looked at, went online, okay, now I know why it's laid out as it is. And that's so much more effectual for us as we take pieces of this. And as you said, you've laid it out, the dependencies, this before that, and those dynamics. So I think that'll be very, very helpful too. But I did want to highlight, this is crucial to improving, is again, these third-party or domain experts coming in and providing assistance where we have needs. So again, hats off to the team. This is a very important step.
Could you explain just a little bit more the role of the TGC, that first thing that we do, and how it's going to help drive the work for the plan as we go through the years?
Sure. So a technology governance committee is something that Barry Dunn actually often recommends. We've seen it execute. I've seen it execute in my former life in local government, where putting together stakeholders that aren't necessarily enterprise technologists, right? So technology has evolved over the last 20, 25 years significantly, and everyone who's got an iPhone in their hand thinks they know a whole lot about technology. Well, the fact is they do. They use it every day. They know what they need. They know what they want. They need a voice at the table. But that also needs to have that structure and management. That's why enterprise IT still exists, because there are things, a lot of things behind the scenes that is going on that they're planning for, that they're protecting the organization from, that those end users who are, self-proclaimed technologists are not as aware of. So you're bringing all of those people to the table, and those ideas for projects, those ideas for standards, for governance, for policies, for procedures, they're discussed. They're getting input from the end users or the stakeholders, and so that IT can take all of that into consideration as they move forward with new policies, new procedures, projects in the pipeline as your strategic plan is modified over time or added to, extended, and bringing that governance committee together as not running IT, but helping guide and lead and bring themes from the organization to IT in a very structured manner. Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing I'd add too, just based on my K-12 experience, is it helps avoid the doing
I call it the doing technology for technology's sake. It really brings the focus of education and curriculum delivery, the teaching and learning aspect of a school's system, to the table. And therefore, the needs and requirements of the educators can be put on the table and put in perspective. And so you have that enabler in the system that you have in so many other strategic planning processes. This is the step where you have that strategic planning process for technology that takes those factors into consideration. And I've seen it in my own career in education that many times it takes time to change that culture, but it's so important. Otherwise, you have technology, but there's a disconnect with the use of it for instructional delivery. And so I think that's the biggest benefit of pushing forward in this area.
Mr. Higginbotham, I would add that I think we've had a very informal process for a number of years now, and it's worked, but we need to move to more formal processes and have a mutual accountability between people requesting the technology and those that are expected to deliver it. We've got to talk about sustainability. Where's the funding coming for projects, and have a mutual agreement on what we're going to do there. And so we're looking just to standardize the processes and have that mutual accountability, and also have a governing group to report out on this plan, and what our progress is towards that way, as well as reporting out to the board. And so we'll be starting that work very soon, but that's what we're trying to do, is make sure that it's kind of a level playing field for everybody, and we understand our expectations, and that we're going through things in a thoughtful way, but we also don't want to be paralyzed by analysis either.
Sure.
Let's go ahead and make some decisions and move.
Okay.
Would that include working with county personnel for like new programs? So, we're going to go to this program and y'all are going to have to use it, or
No, that's usually outside the scope of things.
Okay. But, I mean,
We're talking internally. But
could we invite them to for those big decisions for programs that do affect both of us? Say there's a tracking program for vehicles and we want to jump on the bandwagon for our buses, or finance programs, and make sure it works for us as well, because sometimes things are different with our teachers on contract and the way they work and the hours.
Right, and I think we always look for opportunities to have shared service with the county, especially if there's a cost benefit to us.
Absolutely.
To both agencies.
Model best practice.
Any other questions? Thank you both so much.
So I would just finish up with, first of all, thanking Barry Dunn for taking this comprehensive look at our processes, and I think they did a great job at charting a path to a desired state. Our team is committed to evaluating each of these, but as Don said, context is going to change. Think about where we were 7 years ago and where we are today. Things are going to change as we move along, especially those very expensive recommendations that they've made. Certainly every year that we look at the goals that are set out for us, those things that have a real expense to them are going to have to compete with other budget items, as we always do. And I also wanted to share actions to date so far. Last spring, we accepted the preliminary recommendation to hire 3 additional field technicians, and so we converted some unused FTEs, and we created 3 more field technicians. We had 1 open, so we hired that one, and 2 of the 3 that were newly granted. We still have 1 posted, and that has 2 advantages. Number 1, IICs always get kind of cornered in the buildings to help out with break-fix options, and so this should relieve them from some of that, which then opens them up to do their job, and also for the department to give better customer service. So that's the first thing that we've done. We've also, we're following up on the HR recommendations that they've already made. And that was a second-year goal, but we have some openings in the department now, and it gives us some freedom to work in that space. So you'll hear some things from Dr. Vladu in the next report, where we're starting to we want to convert some spaces so that we can build some department leadership capacity. And we're also shifting some employee groups so that we can align them so we can have better customer service to our staff. We've also completed the framework for the TGC, as they just said, and that the invitations for that first meeting are going out this week. And we also have an initial meeting scheduled for the financial sustainability subcommittee that will look at sustainable model for technology spending as a whole, and particularly for that one-to-one refresh that is starting to work its way towards us. And that concludes my report, and we will report to you at least on an annual basis on our progress, and we look forward to that. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Carroll. Thank you guys as well. Appreciate it.
All right, our last agenda item this evening is a staffing and FY23 pay plan update. Dr. Shandor.
Thank you, Ms. Graltz. Dr. Vladu, our Chief Human Resource Officer, will provide information regarding the status of summer hiring as current as the 5th day of school. Dr. Vladu.
Madam Chair Goreltz, members of the school board, and Dr. Shandor, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to provide 2 updates to you tonight. First, I'll begin with a staffing update. Teachers make up the largest licensed group of employees. We began this school year with 11.5 special education teacher vacancy. As a reminder, we have approximately 130 filled positions, and we were hiring for 49 retirements, resignations, reclassification, promotions. So we hired 38 out of those 49 vacancies, and the 2 areas where those vacancies exist is split between elementary and secondary. We also began the school year with 9 teacher vacancies. One area is English. We have 4 vacancies there. 2 CTE, 1 elementary, 1 math, and 1 French. We're also hiring for 1 high school counselor director, 2 full-time counselors, and a part-time counselor position for a total of 3.5 FTEs. Next, we're hiring for 2 speech-language pathologists, 1 social worker, 1 reading specialist, and 1 library media specialist. This slide shows the status of our non-licensed group, and I'll hit some highlights. Paraeducators in special education, it's a difficult area for us to fill. And we know last year I came before you numerous times and I presented a similar number of vacancies. We're actually a little bit better off than we were last year, but a lot of work to be done there. As Dr. Shandor presented, we have 12. What that number doesn't show you is that 2 in the pipeline, but we do have 12 custodian vacancies. In paraeducator vacancies, we made significant progress there. We began the school year in August with 20 plus, and we have narrowed that distance to 8 vacancies. We're still looking for 2 crossing guards, 1 printer, which is a critical position, 1 community outreach coordinator, 1 occupational therapist, and in our department, 1 licensure specialist. Next, I want to highlight some of our action steps. We're very grateful to Langley 4 Eustis for inviting us now to speak to their retirees. These are individuals that spent 20 years in the military and are thinking about getting out. That was one of those individuals looking for career choices, and we know that for the right fit, our soldiers can step into a number of jobs, not just teachers, but we have a number of jobs, and we want to be at the table. That is not to say that everyone is the right fit, but we know that, when you serve your country, you can serve your community by actually working in K-12, and we heard that example from some of our presenters tonight. So we are doing that on the 29th. Just this past weekend, I got to give some congratulations to our personnel office, where they held a job fair at Grafton for custodians, and we have 9 that shown up. And we hire forward those, so we have those offers, which have brought down our numbers significantly since that time. We're also very proud of our pipelines. We have an early student teacher programs. We're going to welcome fall graduates, or actually those completing their student teaching. And we have a process that if it all goes well, we want to offer them jobs before they graduate. So that's coming up. We also have a parent to teacher program. We have at least 2 in the division who traditionally they would take leave to complete their student teaching, their sabbatical. We were actually providing that on the job, working with the university and providing them with the opportunity to complete it while they're taking over a classroom. Next, we have a career switcher program. Anyone with a 4-year degree, we can, again, look at what their strength is, do a transcript review, and channel them to their area of interest. And one other area, we have had a meeting this Friday, we're looking at doing also a pipeline for school administrators, also school leaders. So we are collaborating with ODU to start in the spring, and more information will be provided for up-and-coming teacher leaders in our school division. One other item, I know we have a lot of examples here, and I will not be touching on all of them, is I want to commend our principals because in the days prior to school, those last couple of days, we asked our principals to get in front of their parents, back to school night at PTA, and advertise their vacancies by school. And for the next 2 days, our phones are already off the hook. And we hired 12 paraeducators. And so we're just so excited that those traditional models of recruiting, that face-to-face, reaching out to people, and parents really want to serve in those roles. We're going to be as flexible as we need to be. If folks want to share a position, there's no reason why we can't do that. And so again, we have a number of strategies. I could spend a lot more time on this, but certainly we're very, very excited about what we have to offer. Last item on this slide, there's no reason why we can't begin offering jobs for next year to those individuals. I know we just, folks are going to be looking at me and say, oh, I thought you guys are still hiring for this year. We are, but it's time for us to look to next year. And some more information is going to be coming about getting that process started before the holidays. We're really excited about that. So this completes the staffing update. At this time, I could take any questions that you might have about the staffing updates.
For the positions that are unfilled, that obviously we have, students taking those classes now, how are we providing instruction for those students?
We've been very, very fortunate, and one of the reports we can pull in from Frontline for our subs is the type of degree. So we can pull up from our 400 plus subs and figure out what degrees do they have, what strengths do they have. So we do a matchmaking. Okay, well, I notice you have an English degree. Can you cover one of these vacancies? We also had a number of staff that, we needed to temporarily step in because they had the expertise into a classroom. They were licensed, they were qualified, and we did very limited shifting around only when we couldn't do anything else. And so again, we're very proud of those efforts because we do have a qualified long-term sub in every classroom.
Leads into my question, how are we sitting with subs?
Oh, that's great. When I walk in every morning, I run into our lead specialist, Elizabeth. First question I ask, what's our fill rate? Today was 80%. We're approximately 10% higher than the national average. So that is something that we monitor. And we're about 10% higher than last year. We know that for staff sustainability and morale, we need to make sure that we work on supporting teachers when they cannot be at work. So far, so good.
You say 400 substitutes in the pool there? That's a lot higher than the numbers we were hearing the last year and a half or so.
100.
Yeah, I know.
Yes, we did start. We were back in the around 100 mark during the height of the pandemic, but no, it has come up very nicely.
Okay, good.
Any other questions on staffing?
So next, and as you heard from our presentation, one of the strategies is to work on staffing. So tonight we bring before you two proposed updates to the pay plan. The first update is to add a manager of projects and logistics support. This is the conversion of the position of IT project manager, which previously did not include any supervisor or very limited supervisory duties. So this is an expansion of supervision and some partial reorganization and reshifting in IT responsibilities. Consequently, we will be deleting the IT project manager position because it will no longer be needed. The second proposed change to the pay plan is to add an assistant manager of network and systems administration. This is to convert the vacant network and communication system engineer position. Our IT department has gone at a very busy time with 2 positions unfilled, and we're hoping that with these positions, these recommendations, they could move forward and be fully staffed. So those are the 2 recommendations. There are 4 on there, but they're a pair. You add one, you delete the other.
So this will open up downstream FTEs, correct?
Yes, that will be the case.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the updates to the FY23 pay plan.
Can't do that yet, we've got to wait till our special meeting. I will take that motion in just a second. Any other questions for Dr. Vladu? All right, then I'm going to close the work session and then call to order the September 12th, 2022 special meeting of the York County School Board. We have one action item that needs approval. Dr. Shandor?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Geralds. Dr. Ledoux just provided related information in his FY23 pay plan update. Unless there are further questions by the board members for Dr. Ledoux, we can move forward with the approval.
That's great. All right, now I need a motion.
Now, I make a motion to approve the updates to the FY23 pay plan.
Second.
Board?
Yes, the motion was made by Mr. Richardson and seconded by Mr. Higginbotham to approve the updates to the FY23 pay plan. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Mr. Myatt?
Yes.
Ms. Wall?
Yes.
Thank you, the motion passed 5-0.
Thank you, Ms. Ford. All right, now we're in need of a closed session to discuss legal matters. Can a board member please make a motion and a second?
Yes, I move that the York County School Board convene in closed session to consult with legal counsel employed by a public body regarding specific legal matters requiring the provision of legal advice by such counsel pursuant to the exemption of Section 2.2-3711A8 of the Virginia Freedom of Information Act.
I'll second.
Ms. Ford?
Yes, the motion was made by Mr. Higginbotham and seconded by Mr. Schaefer for the school board to convene in closed session. Mr. Schaefer?
Yes.
Mr. Myatt?
Yes.
Mr. Richardson?
Yes.
Mr. Higginbotham?
Yes.
Ms. Wall?
Yes.
Thank you, we're now in closed session.
All right, thank you, Ms. Ford. All right, our
Thank you,
next,
guys. Have a great day.
our next regular meeting will be held at 7 o'clock on Monday, September 27th.
She shut it down.
I make a motion.
Yeah.